Good evening, Tigard. We're coming up on the long Labor Day weekend here. I'm excited to be with all of you this evening and to take your questions and continue our discussions through our pandemic. And my hope is that we'll be back to doing these live and in person at some point, but we're going to continue to remain engaged as we can virtually. So want to remind you that you can submit your questions in the chat box throughout our conversation. If you miss any part of the discussion, you can rewatch it on the city's YouTube channel. And I want to give you an update on a couple of different items before we open up our conversation. So get your questions in so we can get those up and prepared for me to respond. Some heads ups I want to give you. First is on the fact that the Public Safety Advisory Board, we are now accepting applications for membership of that group. We've already received 5 applications. You can submit your application on the city's website, and applications will be accepted until September 16th. If you're wondering what this group and body is, this is the renamed group I had originally proposed to the council, called the Public Safety Transformation Commission. You probably heard me speaking about that over the last couple of chats, and based on some changes that we made to the structure, the council made to the structure and functioning, we have renamed it to the Public Safety Advisory Board. So that's the group where we're going to be working through a bunch of the issues that have been raised around policing and racial justice, and that's going to be the group that tackles that. So if you're interested, again, applications will be accepted until September 16th, and you can submit your application of interest on the city's website. Also want to let you know that we are seeking input on the what is needed and important in the hiring of our next city manager. Our current city manager, Marty Wine, who's been with the city for almost a decade, has made a decision to move on and to not renew her contract with the city. And she's done a great job leading us. We want to thank her for that over the last 9+ years. But as we're getting ready to transition into having a new leader and executive of the city, we want your input. And this is also probably a good, quick opportunity to remind residents that I am not a full-time mayor, and that most cities in Oregon, and soon to be basically every city in Oregon, as soon as Beaverton changes, will not have a full-time mayor acting as what's called a strong mayor form of government. We have a council and manager form of government in Tigard, as is in place in most cities. And so our city manager is a key person because they serve as the executive leader in our city operations and organization. So it's a key role, and we're seeking your input. You can provide that on our city website. We've had close to 40 members of the public that have already provided input. Hot off the press is some news that I want to share around opportunity for small business and a workshop being presented by Craft 3. This is one of the organizations that we've been partnering with to support small business through COVID. They're offering a virtual webinar on September 30th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. This is going to be a webinar with local nonprofit leaders, Craft 3, and designed to help business manage the short-term impacts of COVID-19. It's going to be interactive, and they're going to cover a number of different topics. All that information will be available. In fact, we can put it in the chat, I think, for this session if you're interested in more of the info about that. Another reminder and heads up, this is another opportunity to provide input, is that we are asking members of the Tigard community to become design advisors related to our Universal Plaza, which is our exciting project. It's not going to be named that permanently, probably, but that's kind of the working name of it for now. This is the plaza space that we have near downtown that's quite large. We are seeking input in a robust way. We want the community to help figure out what that space should look like for our long-term use as residents, and becoming a design advisor is an opportunity to do that. Last, I want to remind you that, and this is a little fun thing we're doing, I'm definitely not a great haiku writer, but I was challenged by some other members of the City Council to submit a haiku about what universality means to you by submitting haiku poems that reflect your experience here in Tigard. What's interesting is that I didn't read those instructions before I wrote my haiku. I thought I was writing a haiku about the Universal Plaza. So that's interesting. I may have to submit a second haiku now that I've read the instructions properly. A rotating selection of these poems are going to be displayed in lights at the site of the future Universal Plaza, and the poems could reflect how you're feeling right now or the dreams you hold for the future. Let your imagination take flight. Well, I guess I did that, so maybe I don't have to rewrite my haiku. I just didn't think a lot about universality. Okay, we're going to start taking your questions. First one we received beforehand was, will members of the Public Safety Advisory Board receive a stipend? So the council had a discussion about this, and it was important. It was a very important consideration for us. We want to make sure that there aren't barriers to people participating. And so where the council landed on that topic was not to provide a stipend per se, but to make sure that we were available and providing whatever financial assistance was needed to allow everyone to be able to participate. So if that meant paying for childcare, or if the person, is the person that would be participating and it's an evening meeting would be responsible for, providing the meal for their family, then we would assist with all those kinds of things and any other similar kind of a barrier. But we're not going to specifically pay a stipend for, if you think about it as a stipend for time, that's not going to be something that we're providing. But we are very interested in making sure that we're addressing and supporting all the barriers that might prevent someone from participating. The next question we got is, what is the latest on the discussions around SROs? The latest on those discussions are that the school district continues to be in the lead with the City of Tigard and the City of Tualatin participating. The City of Tigard we're actually paying for the facilitator. This is a very specific and important need to make sure that we include the right voices in the conversation, that we make sure the conversation is reflective of the entire community. And there are a couple of local organizations that are very skilled at that. And so we are actually paying for, and that's one of the ways we're supporting that conversation, is by making sure that the right skilled facilitators are engaged. My understanding right now is that they're in information collecting mode, both conducting interviews and receiving and requesting data and information. And the next steps in the process, I believe, will be becoming available soon. So that is my latest on that. And let's see, the next question from Sherilyn. What is the City of Tigard's plan to deal with Antifa if and when they come to unpeacefully protest? There are rumors they are coming to the suburbs soon. So the police chief, actually, we've received a couple of similar questions that the police chiefs responded to, and we are prepared. Our police department is prepared to protect both the safety and property in Tigard. She's not, for obvious reasons, I think, not providing a lot of details about that, but rest assured that we are prepared, and we're not going to have tolerance for people that are not peacefully protesting. So we're big supporters of people exercising their free speech rights and speaking for what they believe, when it becomes not peaceful or damaging to other people's property, then it is a problem, and our police department is prepared. What's the latest on opening parks? The latest I know is that the parks are open with the exception of playground equipment that is either difficult or impossible to clean or keep clean and sanitary during COVID. We really need to ask that people continue to be diligent, especially going into this weekend, with mask wearing. And that's the comment I would make about parks is open spaces are great, but just because you are in an open space, if you're walking, right next to someone on a trail, or you're going to be in oncoming traffic through a trail, you really need to be protecting the others around you. Remember that your mask is mostly to protect others, and their masks protect you. What other questions are we getting in? Let's see here. Being in a past peaceful protest years ago in California, I respect you as mayor that wants to address issues of racism and discrimination, especially before it becomes a major distraction to the city. Other leaders have avoided or did not acknowledge these problems, which has caused more problems, but you are taking it head on despite the lucky citizens who have blinders on. Thank you. Okay. I don't know who made that comment, but thank you very much for that. We're trying to do, I think our entire council, and with myself included, are trying to make sure that we are both being responsive and doing the right thing, even when it's not popular. That's part of what being a good leader is. And I'm not even saying this is a time when it's not popular. I just, there are certainly, as you acknowledge, quite a number of individuals that aren't super happy about some of the efforts that we're putting towards addressing racism or discrimination. And frankly, it's coming from people who, in large part, don't feel that there's a problem or don't feel that there's racism and discrimination still in the city of Tigard. Interestingly enough, though, some of the information we've been providing and I've been providing in response to some of those communications, I think are starting to help on an education front to help people understand what exactly we're meaning when we're talking about some of those topics, and that it's not your neighbor calling someone an inappropriate or derogatory name from across the street. That might have been what was happening 50 or 60 years ago. We're particularly, when we talk about racism and systemic racism, we're talking about things that are at the core of how we've even built our public society, and both the assumptions and just methods that we use that now it's sometimes even hard to see are perhaps discriminating against people. Next question, will the council reconsider budget choices at the next budget committee meeting? Absolutely, and in fact the council and the budget committee have made it a specific choice to have a more robust set of budget committee meetings this year, particularly because the discussion started because of COVID-19 and our need to be more responsive and making more in-the-moment adjustments to the budget and having more public input. And so we are having a quarterly scheduled, normally what we would do is we'd have a budget committee meeting at a council meeting, and we would devote, anywhere from 30 to maybe 60 minutes on the budget once. And that actually probably happened when it wasn't budget season. That would happen like once or twice in the off season. We're now scheduling, and we already have our first one scheduled for October 3rd. This will be the first quarter of the year because we operate on the I think all government entities in the state of Oregon operate on a July to June budget cycle. And so this will be our first quarter review of the budget and making adjustments. So we intend to both be making, I think, more robust adjustments due to COVID and on both the forecasting and the spending side, so revenue forecast and spending. And then we're likely going to, not likely, we'll also be discussing issues that are impacts from some of our racial justice and social justice conversations, things like that were already being discussed. Body cams for the police department is an example of one that we were reevaluating right as the budget was being finalized, which has to be finalized by the end of June. So that work wasn't completed by the end of when we statutorily have to have the budget done, but that doesn't mean we don't immediately continue that work. So Cheryl asked a question, if President Trump defunds Portland, will that impact utilities, sewer, and water in the city of Tigard as water is purchased from Portland? Okay, so I'm gonna clarify a couple things I think about our utilities. First of all, I am not aware of, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't think I am. I'm not aware of any support that the federal government provides directly for utilities of any kind, sewer, water, or otherwise, in the city of Tigard. And I'll go through those with you. Water is not purchased from Portland. We stopped purchasing water in Portland as our regular water source in 2016 when we jointly worked with Lake Oswego to build and operate our own water treatment plant. We receive water off the Clackamas River near the city of Gladstone. We pipe it through and underneath the Willamette River in a massive pipe, I think it's 48 inches wide, just to give you a little detail about it. That's a big pipe. We pipe it into a water treatment plant in West Lynn that we jointly own with the city of Lake Oswego, and we then turn that raw water into water that you can drink safely, and it's then piped up Highway 43 and over to, if it's coming to Tigard, it goes to the Waluga Reservoir, which is fairly close to the city lines, and then is piped to our pump station that's on right off of Bonita Road. And so that's how we get water right now. And we get, and that's really, unless we're on some emergency supply situation, that is the one and only way we receive water. We do have other backup options, but that's the primary water source for us. Sewer is provided by Clean Water Services, which is operated by Washington County, and we jointly manage the sewer system. We have things that we're responsible for, certain pipe sizes within the city, and then Clean Water Services, again, as an entity of the county, provides the larger sewer services or larger pipes, and then provides the cleaning of that water such that it can be disposed of properly and safely. So other utilities, I mean, I don't think people probably have questions about electricity and natural gas and all those, but if you do, certainly put those in, but none of those are funded through the federal government that I'm aware of. So we have a question: what are we doing to make sure Tigard residents are not evicted because of COVID-19? So it's a great question, and the governor has taken action not just for residents but also for businesses on this point, and we have done our best to make sure that we advertise about the information and what's available. We've also made our own declarations on these points, and so we are ready. And if we receive a concern or a complaint where this is a concern, we would help citizens and or business owners that may be affected to try to help them through how to address that with their landlords or There's actually moratoriums on not just evictions, but also on foreclosures. So Kareen's asking about updates on Southwest Corridor. The latest information I have on Southwest Corridor is, first of all, what we've been, since we've really been focusing in the city on the station locations in the city of Tigard recently. That's what we've been focused on, particularly the Hall Street station, but also 68th and Elmhurst. Those are all three stations that we want to make sure those station areas help us realize our long-term land use visions, and that happens through careful and thoughtful planning and design. And we've had to push pretty hard with TriMet, to be honest, to make sure that the stations that are being designed meet our needs. And in some cases, that's taken, I'm just going to say, a lot of pushing, including me and our community development director going and having one-on-one meetings with executives at TriMet on more than one occasion. So I guess I'll just point out I'm your advocate for making sure that we get what we need out of the Southwest Corridor, and part of why that's important to me is that if we don't, then I don't feel like the project has necessarily a net benefit to our community. It needs to meet our needs. So that's from our perspective, that's why we're participating in the project. Other updates on the Southwest Corridor, the measure to fund the Southwest Corridor with a local match is going to be on the ballot in November, and that is something that I would ask everyone to carefully consider. It is in the form of a payroll tax, will be what is funding the paid by businesses. That's the funding mechanism that Metro has identified, and if that funding measure does not pass, there really is there's no backup plan where we can locally come up with $1 billion, which is I'm rounding numbers a little bit, but essentially the local match for that project is right around $1 billion. That's billion with a B, to build that project. So, Karina, I hope that's good enough on the Southwest Corridor updates. If you have specific questions, please put those into the chat. Let's see. Arian has got a question about, or maybe a comment. Since the Blazers weren't good enough, I hope you're rooting with me for the Lakers. So this is maybe a somewhat dirty secret that I don't love to let out, but I actually grew up in the Southern California area and attended many a Laker game, and my parents are Lakers fans. I have become a Blazers fan, but I will absolutely use the Lakers as my backup. So yes, I'm with you on that one. What am I hearing? This is the next question. What am I hearing from the business community? Is Tigard losing small businesses because of COVID? So that's a great question, and I think it's still a little too early to know. And I haven't seen specific results. My last communication and discussion with the Tigard Chamber of Commerce CEO was just this week. We were talking about a variety of topics, this being one of them. And I think we still, both the city and the chamber, feel like the questions are still out on what the results of COVID are going to be for small business. I think there are businesses that and I guess part of my reaction is some of it's not small business either. I mean, I don't know if you would consider like Sky High to be a small business, but I just saw them advertising liquidation of all of their assets at the Tigard location. So, that's a chain organization, not a small business, but clearly being significantly impacted by COVID. And so, there are bound to be impacts, and I think we expect that. And there's certainly huge challenges for all business, but particularly small business. But I haven't seen a sort of a official rundown on exactly how many businesses, etc. Kareen says, I'm excited to have the chance to have more options to get around our region. Yes, I am too. And in fact, we all should be wanting that, because we are needing to build the infrastructure now for the future. Even if one were to argue, well, you don't, and I wouldn't necessarily agree with this, but even if you argue, we don't need it now, or because of COVID, people aren't taking public transportation right now, or, congestion's not as bad because not as many people are driving. That's all true, but, COVID's not going to be here for 5 years, likely to be in the same way it's impacting our lives now. That's probably another 6 to 18 month disruption of how we are, and there's going to be more people, population growth in our areas. We are fortunate that we live in a beautiful place that people want to be, and I strongly believe, and I, as the leader of your community, feel that we need to prepare for the future and not pretend like it's not going to happen. That also helps us concentrate growth where we want it, in dense areas like the Tigard Triangle and downtown Tigard. All right. What is the city doing to attract affordable housing? Oh, so many things. Everything from both supporting the Southwest Corridor project, which helps enable and create the opportunities for development. We've provided system development charge subsidies for a number of affordable housing projects. We have implemented a lien code in the Tigard Triangle that allows, I think if you talk to any developer of either affordable housing or not, allows them to with more guarantee and with less costs to develop and build their housing projects. We have added a number of housing types, both cottage clusters and ADUs in residential zones in the last couple years. We've implemented a construction excise tax, which helps or will help us to provide more support for affordable housing in the city. The city of Tigard is actually looked upon as a leader in this area now, and that's not me saying that. I frequently get texts from folks that are at various public functions where even I think the Speaker of the Oregon House was referencing Tigard's actions locally on affordable housing. So I'm proud of what we've done, not because the Speaker of the House is recognizing it, but because we're doing so much that is being viewed as effective, and more importantly, is actually being effective. How can we support our small businesses right now? Shop local. I'll say that one again. Shop local. Our local small businesses need it. They deserve it. And it is not only the right thing to do, but I think you get a more personalized and better experience when you do that. And I think we all buy things on Amazon, but I have absolutely no interest in making Jeff Bezos more wealthy. Let's see. What's your favorite park in Tigard? I'm going to say Cook Park, and I'm going to say that because it is both close to my home and convenient, and I also think that the area in Cook Park down by the boat ramp and where you can launch kayaks and other things is just one of the prettiest spots in the city. I love walking around that area. The flower gardens that are in Cook Park and sort of a bit up from the river, just walking in that whole area. All right, we have another question. I have a feeling this one might be a plant from the staff, maybe not. Why is the ballot box not in the City Hall parking lot anymore? Staff, you want to tell me, was that a plant or was that a real question? No, I know the answer. Yes. I'm wondering if you did you plant the question?
Plant, yes.
Oh, okay, it was a plant. All right, I'm not surprised by that. No, I don't need help with that one. So the answer to this question about where the ballot box is that Washington County is maintenancing all of them in preparation for the next election. There was a lot of concern about the one at City Hall in King City. And that one is gone for the same reason. Temporary. You don't need to worry about it. It'll be back. All right, Michael. I realize this isn't in Tigard's hands, but when you commented on planning for the future in relation to the Southwest Corridor, that serves about 3% of the population. Why isn't the same sentiment shared in relation to highways, which serves 95% plus of the population on a regional and state level? So I would make a couple comments to that. One is that the ballot measure that you will all be voting on in November actually has a bunch of road projects. Those aren't the only things that are on there, but there are absolutely major road investments, and frankly, the business community's been pushing for particular road improvements that will help them move commerce, and that's very important to them. And moving vehicles is also important. The Southwest Corridor gives us the unique opportunity to move a lot of people in and out of Tigard to population centers in a way that both allows redevelopment along the entire corridor and also allows people to hopefully not necessarily be car dependent and live in a community where they can meet all their needs both from walking, biking, and using transit. And that's really the vision for both downtown Tigard and the Tigard Triangle, are two town centers in the city. And so that the hope would be that it's more than 3%. I think the percent of the population right now that rides TriMet is actually 4 or 5%, or it had been. I don't know with COVID I don't think we can use COVID numbers to compare much right now. In a really high utilizing community for public transit, like Vancouver, British Columbia as an example, that number's about 11%, and they're known as having a world-class public transit system. And so the goal is not necessarily to get to 50% of people using public transportation. What it does do, though, is it moves a lot of people efficiently and inexpensively from one place to another when you need a bunch of people moved in both directions. And Tigard, we have just about as many people going into Portland as we have coming out to Tigard. There's a few more that go in, but the project makes a lot of sense because we can move people in both directions that are needing to move in for both work, commerce, and other purposes. All right, this is a question: Biden or Trump? Question mark. I'm actually going to choose to just not respond to that. I'm not affiliated with a party. This is not a partisan office. Our city council is not a partisan council as well, and I just don't think that that's a necessary conversation to have. What I would encourage is for everybody to vote. So please vote. Mike Coley, who is the executive director of the League of Oregon Cities, he's apparently watching. Good evening, Mike. He says, great job. Okay, thank you. The League of Oregon Cities loves you. Your staff is top-notch too. Need an In-N-Out, though. Well, Mike, I am not aware of a plan to bring In-N-Out to Tigard. I am aware of a plan to bring one near Tigard, but I won't be sad if In-N-Out is available closer to Tigard. Karine asks, is school in session at my house? And then is Tigard looking at childcare challenges so many families with younger kids are facing right now? This is I'm going to take that part first. School is not in session in my house quite yet because my children all attend Tigard Tualatin Public Schools, and our children have informed us that they will start school when school officially starts, which is a week later than normal, which means it's still almost 2 weeks away. I think my wife wishes it were sooner. So then we'll take the more serious part of this question. Is Tigard looking at childcare challenges that so many families with younger kids are facing right now? We are, and we have been, and actually we've been working with the county to try to, and actually I'll just be real specific. There was a question about the county spending on a program that was going to help child care throughout the entire county. And we had a couple of commissioners on the county commission that were not really sure whether they were in support of the plan. And a bunch of the mayors, including myself, with about a half an hour before the meeting, were lobbying hard to make sure that the child care support that the county was going to be funding made it through. So it is something that we're acutely aware of. I'm acutely aware of it at work too. I'm seeing the staff and physicians that I work with every day in my full-time employment. We've had attendance challenges this week as school's been starting. I think everybody is having challenges, and it's just a very stressful time. Everybody's at home. I'm hearing, and I think I'm going to have to start having reevaluating whether my internet connection is fast enough for 3 people to be doing school, me to be running video conferences and working at the same time, and then a child taking a break and streaming Netflix. I mean, this is what life looks like right now, and it's stressful too. I mean, there's dogs barking, kids yelling. At least at my house. I assume at everybody's house. My kids are pretty good, and we still have yelling. I guess most of the time it's my wife and I anyway. I'm just being real with you tonight, Tigard. Let's see, Connie. We're going back to some comments. Great response concerning our future president. All right. Mr. Antonelli, have you heard any information on best practices for Halloween considering COVID? So this came up at the city council meeting related to Trick or Treat Main Street and that function that the Tigard Downtown Alliance typically puts on. And I actually asked staff to suggest, I had actually already heard community members talking about Halloween and what it was going to look like. Some of them were guessing that certain costumes with face coverings like ninjas may be much more popular this year. And then, would they collect the candy and then consider it hot for a week and then let kids, get into the candy? I don't know. What I do know is that we asked our staff to work through this with the county emergency operations team and the public health folks, and we hope to have information that we can share about what best practices will be for Halloween. So more to come on that. And I can commit to you, I'm going to look at the staff member who will make this happen right now, Mr. Kent Wyatt, making sure that we get that information. As soon as it's available, we get that information up and on the website and out through our social media channels. All right. Other questions, Tigard? What you got for me? We've got some, I got some heads ups for you on some mobile census assistance events. So if you've got questions about the census, there's an event on Wednesday, September 9th from 3 to 6 p.m. at the Tigard Transit Center. Tuesday, September 8th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Tigard Bi-Mart. And tonight, that one's already happened. How about September 10th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Tigard Walmart? So if you need assistance from the census, those are some opportunities and locations where you can get it. Staff, do we have other questions rolling in? Oh, yes. Do you have any advice for individuals who are interested in running for Tigard City Mayor or Council Member? Absolutely. This was me, so I can speak about it from personal experience, and then also my perspective as both a city councilor and mayor now. If you're interested, I would encourage you to get involved in the city activities, not only to, it does a lot of things, but one, it lets you sort of get exposure to what's actually going on in the city, meeting people who you may learn other things from that you might not learn if you didn't get involved. Helps you understand how the city operates, what really businesses the city's in. I use businesses kind of, what are the service lines that we offer? A lot of people write us about schools. That's not something we do in this area of the country. We have an independent school board and school district that operates. And so, learning things like that and how our city functions and what services we provide. Attending council meetings, which is even easier to do now because you can watch them live on, and there is no place to go. They're all virtual right now. But that helps you know what's going on and helps you stay up on what is happening in the city and what people are talking about. And then I think just being a very astute and involved individual in the community who likes talking to people. If you were an extreme introvert and you didn't really like talking to people, it'd be hard to be an effective city councilor. It's not that you can't, but part of what you have to do is interact with people in these roles to be effective. Because my job as mayor or as a city council member is to represent all of you. And I can only do that effectively when I know what as many of you as possible are thinking about things. So that would be another suggestion or statement I would have around that. So be involved, be engaged, be talking with people and interested in things that that matter to local residents. So Irene, when is the next police chief chat? That's being scheduled for September right now. And Irene also commented she feels when she speaks, she feels better when the chief speaks. I do too. I really appreciate our police chief and the leadership she's provided, both in the ways that she's been open to discussion and change and the feedback of our community. And Irene is saying the overall changes in perspective need progress. Okay. What other questions do we have? Tigard, you got to have other things on your mind. Let's hear them. Put them in the chat. The next opportunity to have a conversation with the council will be at the next, what we're calling Spark session. That'll be on Thursday, September 17th with Councilor Anderson and Councilor Lube. I will just briefly mention that Councilor Anderson is running for Metro Council. He's on the ballot as one of the two final candidates for Metro Council, and Councilor Lube is up for re-election, so I'll mention that right now. They both have my endorsements for those races. Let's see, another question from Arian. There's a population of disabled people who are homebound because of their limitation, even more because of COVID. I'm on the Disability Services Advisory Council and would like to talk about inclusive parks, though we probably only have a month before the rain kicks in. Yeah, that's true. I hope it might be 6 weeks, but you're probably right about that. That's great, and I will make sure we've got an entire team that is working on moving forward with just ADA compliance throughout the entire city, and this is certainly a topic that fits into that. And so I will ask that staff get in contact with you. If you wouldn't mind sending a message to the city through the Facebook page. Don't comment, because then it'll be public unless you want your phone number or email in the public domain. But if you send us a message or send me an email, we will absolutely get you connected in with the right staff to have those conversations. Anything else coming in? Tigard, you're easy on me tonight. Is this because of the holiday, or are you just feeling bad for me, or what do we got going on? I'm not going to keep us here extra long if we don't have any more questions, so I'll give it another 30 seconds to a minute, and then we will conclude this fireside chat, unless you've got other topics to discuss. Well, Tigard, thank you very much for your time. I want to reemphasize the importance of wearing your masks. And this is not a joke. We literally see increased cases of COVID after every holiday so far. That was true for Memorial Day. It was true for the July 4th holiday. And we expect it to be true. And I incidentally heard both the Washington County Public Health staff and also the infectious disease chief physician that I work with at Kaiser Permanente both say the same thing. And so I'm going to just encourage you to follow their advice and make sure that you are both wearing your masks and following social distancing guidelines even through the holiday, regardless of maybe how much you decide to imbibe. Any final questions, staff? All right. Thank you, Tigard. Good night.